Now let's have some tea.
Or wine.
Hola, mi gente. Welcome back. Today we're doing an episode on breaking bad habits, negative thought patterns, and behaviors. We kind of figured our last episode was on manifestation, affirmations. We figured we'd stay on
those topics that kind of go hand in hand. And sorry, we're looking around because, the puppy is...
Yeah, we're a little higher up though, so he can't reach us today, but he still likes to be all up in the business and know what's going on.
It's like if you hear a little pity pat, is the puppy.
Yeah. So today we want to talk about, breaking bad habits and like those negative thought patterns that I know affect us all. We all go through those or, seasons or moments. And sometimes you have to really know how to control them and stop them and, break those cycles.
And sometimes it's hard to pinpoint it as a habit. Nobody wants to have habits. And when she sent this topic to me, I had to literally sit down and be like, me? I don't have those things.
Sometimes we don't realize when we fall into bad habits. Like I said, I don't know how it is for you guys out there, but are you able to just really, unless it's something obvious, like smoking, obviously, that's a bad habit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like even right now, one thing that I gave up recently, it's only been like a week or two, is vaping. I was never like a consistent cigarette smoker, but if I was out drinking or, out with friends, I would want a cigarette. Or if I was around it, I would never go buy myself cigarettes. But if I was around people that smoked, I would want to smoke a cigarette. And it was really bad. It was disgusting. It was a bad habit. And then even with vaping, like, if it's not in front of me, I don't care. I'm more of like an out of sight, out of mind person, which is terrible. And if it's not around me, I'm fine without it. I ended up picking up like a vaping, addiction, I guess you could say, because that's really what it is. Yeah, a bad habit. And that's something I finally gave up. It's really obviously bad for you. It's still nicotine. You're not getting a lot of the byproducts, but it's bad. It's bad. And the worst part is we don't know what's going to happen 10 to 20 years from now. We don't know what kind of effects vaping is going to have on us. We don't know what it's doing to our bodies, our lungs. And I'm too old for that shit. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm good. So, and thankfully, I'm a type of person, whereas once I want to stop something, I'm very cold turkey. Like I remember with cigarettes, people used to tell me, like people that were, smokers, like, how do you just stop? I'm like, you can't cut back and slowly, if you're really serious about it, you gotta just stop. That's the only way to do it. At least that's how I am. That's like my brain works. Like I'm just cold turkey.
I think that's a crutch for people that when they're like, oh, you just can't stop. You have to wean yourself off. And it just depends on the person. I tried. Because when I was growing up, and I was in high school, everybody was smoking cigarettes, and that was a thing to do. And you were part of the in crowd or whatever crowd it is that you wanted to be a part of. And I remember trying cigarettes, and it just wasn't. I just couldn't get the hang of it. It just wasn't something that I knew how to do. I felt like I failed at it every time I tried.
Luckily.
I would choke. It would
good.
burn. One thing that is a bad habit for me is caffeine. I have such a bad habit when it comes to caffeine. Like soon as I wake up in the morning, I'm already thinking about it by the time I go to bed. I'm like, I gotta get up in the morning.
I know, every day. She's like, I'm going to get a Red Bull. I'm waiting for Mom to bring me a Red Bull.
All the time. So already today, I've had a coffee. I've had a Red Bull. And I'll probably finish I'll finish my Red Bull, and I'll probably have a Coca-Cola soda is like my number one. That's my go-to, and I'll probably have some of that. But I have such a bad habit with caffeine, and I know it's not good to have such a strong habit when it comes to caffeine. I hear so many things about caffeine. I feel like you need it to wake up or to boost up your energy, or it's just. For me, it's just something that I feel like I need, but I won't know until I stop it to see if it's something that I really need.
I feel like that's a lot of it is in our minds too, because for me, caffeine, I love coffee. I could go without it in the morning. I'd rather not. I'd much prefer to have a cup of coffee. So I will always do, and I'll only do one cup. So if I didn't have it in the morning, later on during the day, but there are moments maybe where I've done another cup, but it's not usual for me. But I've also noticed, like, you could probably give me a non-caffeinated cup of coffee if it was the same flavor. It's more for like that comfort, that warmth, that taste in the morning, you know. But I have noticed too, depending on how much caffeine you drink, if you don't have the caffeine, you will get a headache, you know, like even with quitting smoking or vaping, whether it's cigarettes or vaping, you get that headache once you stop, because I know that happened for me too.
And I think that's where it all started, because we were talking about too, like, where did the habit start? So I get migraine headaches. I've been getting them since I was 16. So when I first got diagnosed with them, the doctor also gave me caffeine pills. So I would take caffeine pills to help with the headache, because they were like, caffeine helps to reduce the headache. So I would take whatever medication, like Advil, Motrin, and Excedrin. That's another thing that I take. It has caffeine in it.
Yeah, Excedrins make me so jittery.
And they used to, and they don't anymore, because my body has adjusted. So I think that's where it all started. But then it's a catch-22, because the caffeine dehydrates you. And then
I was going to say that.
You end up either increasing the headache, so it's like you're just playing Russian roulette.
Yeah, you're just like doing one thing to counteract the other. And when it comes to like those like bad habits that we're talking about, and it usually stems from like our negative thinking, right? Because this is going to be about like negative thinking, our mindset, and those bad habits. And I feel like those bad habits do form from like that negative thinking that we have. And like for me, for instance, well, when you think about negative thinking, what does that stem from that then in turn turns into these bad habits forming? I feel like it all stems from one thing, and that's fear. You know, when our bodies or our minds feel fearful, what do, right? You find things, you either don't do what it is you need to do or you want to do, or you're afraid of failure and wanting to obviously be successful in what you're setting your heart and your mind to, right? So then fear sets in, because you're like, well, what if this doesn't happen the way I'm thinking? Because it's reality, and there's always that chance that, okay, it can go this way, the way you want it to go, but it can also go in the opposite way. So then that fear comes in, where we kind of almost paralyze ourselves, and fear stops so many people in life. I mean, personally, I know myself, and I know so many people around me that because of that fear that we feel, it stops us, because we don't want to fail. We don't want to try to do something and then it doesn't work out. You know, that those are things that will hinder us and stop us. Therefore, in turn, also creating whatever bad habits can come for that, because those bring you comfort, or they bring you some kind of like, you know, whatever peace or that you feel in your mind. So I think the first thing that you have to do is, when you're thinking, because obviously, like our last episode, we said, okay, change your thought pattern. Start thinking positively. But how do you really do that? We can say that 1,000 times. I mean, even from that last episode where I said, you know, before you drink something, make sure you show gratitude for even those like little tiny things. And that's still something that I'm working on, because I forget throughout the day constantly, right? So it sounds so easy and simple, and to some people it might sound so stupid to do, because it is so easy. But it's really not. It's a lot harder than you think. So I think the first thing, you know, when you think of fear or someone that's depressed or down, you know, what is there, even just the body language that you exude when you present yourself? You know, your shoulders are caved in, you're more hunched over when you're down and you're not confident. You know, your head is more down, and it's like, if they even said, I think, I'm almost positive it's called, I hope I'm right about this, it's called a power position, where they say, you know, you always want to like, and just doing this for, I think they said like 2 to 3 minutes, changes your whole perspective and mood. And it's been like, there's been research on it. You could even look it up, or if I find like links and research on it, I'll link it down below, because it's been, I think it was a study done by Harvard where they said, even assuming like the power position where, you know, your shoulders are back, keep your shoulders back, that confidence and head always held high. If you can just do that even for 2 to 3 minutes and stand there and think about the things that it is that you want to accomplish just for that day, your whole, there's like neurotransmitters in your brain that tell your brain to think. And when you have that more clear-cut understanding of confidence and not being fearful, that's when you have the strength to be able to break bad habits or these bad patterns. There was another thing that I know I've heard where it's like, if you close your eyes and for just a minute and think about something you're so proud of, and don't just like try to tell yourself anything, really sit there and think about something that you're proud of just for a minute before you go about your day. Like, these are things that can help you. For me with vaping, obviously that was something that's just very like cold turkey, like cut and dry, easy. However, like stupid, like another like little bad habit I have is like biting my lips. And this, I've done this since I was a little girl, like just literally eating the insides of my mouth. And I can't stand that I do it, especially now, like even like watching back on camera, I try not to do it, but, and as I've gotten older, I've been more aware of it, because I know like when you're talking, and you know what is so funny? Me doing it, I've never been aware of it. But now seeing other people doing it in front of me, I'm like, oh my God, that is what I look like. I'm just sitting there like chomping on my cheeks. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, no. So I'm trying to be more aware of that. You know, I catch myself sometimes doing it, but it is it's a little kid. I don't know. It's just something that's a very bad habit. But I think that's one of those things for me that's like one of those like Twitch things where it's just like an anxiety, like comfort thing that I just, I'm not like a nail biter, never been anything like that. But that's been one like stupid thing for me. It's annoying, is I hate it.
And I think also bad habits come from something that makes you feel better. Like she said, when you're in a situation where you think things aren't going, you then go to that thing that makes you feel better or makes you forget all the stuff that's going on. So one bad habit that I have and I've had for a long is sleeping. I love to sleep. I sleep late all the time, and it's not good for you. It's not good for you. Mentally, you lose out on a lot of things. And I've even learned now from reading the Bible that love of sleep is so bad. So for me, I have to like start to break that habit of starting to get up, like set an alarm. And that's another thing. I haven't had to set an alarm for so long, for an earlier period of time to get up, that you start to just get into the bad habit of sleeping and getting up when you want to. And I have to learn now to not do that. I have to learn to get up and find things to do to keep myself occupied, even if I don't have anything to do for the day. There's always stuff to do. There's always something to do. When you have kids, or I have nieces and nephews, you have a home, like there's always stuff to do. So there's no reason for me to be sleeping till 10 o'clock and getting up and be like, just get on my phone and just waste more time. It's like I have to learn to just get up at a more decent time. And I know and your body does need rest, but sometimes it's like a reverse. When you sleep too much, then you're tired for the rest of the day. My grandmother used to be like, oh, you need to get out of the bed. The bed drains you. That's what she used to tell me all the time. You know that bed's going to drain you if you keep staying in bed. So that just tells you. My grandma told me from a kid to get out of bed because it's going to drain you. So I've been doing it for a very long time. When I have the opportunity to stay in bed, I would stay in bed. If I had to go to school, then of course, you get up, you go to school. But if there was nothing for me to do, I would be just in the bed and have no problem with it. So for me, now that I'm reading these things and learning these things, I feel like I definitely need to start setting alarm again for me to get up. And that's something that when I said to her about, it's a crutch. Like, I'm like, oh, I get up at 10, so I'll set an alarm for 9:30. Like, you want to slowly work your way up to the certain amount of time that the time you want to get up. But you can't. You have to just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, see, for me, once I'm up, if I get up that's it. I'm up for the day. I hate that. I'm not one of those people that can go back to sleep. It's terrible. That's why the days that I can sleep till like 9 o'clock on a weekend or something, oh my gosh, I'm like, it just doesn't happen. I can't stand it.
I can't go back to sleep either, but, and that's another thing. I sleep late, but I have a hard time falling asleep.
That's why.
So I take melatonin in order to go to sleep. Then my brain's like, don't get out of bed. So it's like, have to find, like I said, I have to set that alarm so I do get up and just have tasks that I have to set. Well, now that, different things are changing in my life and in my career, I have a feeling now I definitely
You're
will be
more
able
on like
to,
a stricter schedule.
yeah, I'll be a more strict schedule again, which is great because I need it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of my problem, like bad habits, is like time management, just to be more structured in the time management, like allotting, okay, this, like one thing was like even social media, I think so many people out there nowadays, that's a bad habit, an addiction, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Not saying that it's terrible because, we're so blessed to have the opportunity of like being able to make money off social media or all these different opportunities that come with it. However, I do feel like we spend an unhealthy amount of time on it, and it takes away from like what's in our present moment. I sit there and think sometimes of like when my oldest son was really small, and the time that I spent all working, where I was like, I missed out on so much. So that's like a regret that I've always had and I've carried with me. So now, like with the younger ones, I'm like, okay, I'm constantly present, constantly here, constantly doing, going. But then when we're together or having our moments alone time, I'm really like trying to spend those times like disconnecting, and then doing time management where like I'm allotting a certain amount of time or hours. Like, okay, this is gonna be the time I'll be on here for social media, or if I'm by myself at an appointment, I'll do it. But just not sitting there just to like skim and scroll anymore, unless I really have that free time. Like I'm not letting that take away from things that I need to do anymore. Just because time management for me, I've always been terrible at it. So that's like something I'm working on.
Yeah.
So which comes into play. So how do you break these bad habits? How do you stop that negative thinking and thought patterns? And I think going back to our last episode, bringing a lot of that in with the affirmations and gratitude, which if anyone out there has tried it, I want to know, like, how has that worked for you? Because ever since that episode, I've been really implementing that. And when I tell you, it's really been making such a difference. It really, really does. Something so great that I think so many people should do. So obviously those things help, but really I would say too, depending on how many things you're trying to break or change, not trying to do it all at once. You have to really take it step by step or one by one, and then have the proper support behind you. I remember being younger, like a kid even, and, someone in my family was an alcoholic and they were trying to quit drinking, and someone like brought over a bottle of, I don't know if it was champagne or wine to celebrate. And it's like, what? Like, so you really need proper support when you're trying to break these habits. You don't want to be around someone that's literally feeding you the very thing that you're trying to better yourself from, or cut yourself off from.
Because some people don't want you to break that habit. Some people are, you have that bond. Some people have that bond because of that habit. And they don't want you to break that habit because they think it's going to break the bond. So then that's why they still keep putting it in your face, the alcohol, the habit that you're trying to break to keep you, at the level as them. They don't want to see you succeed or do better. You have to be, like I said before, in your friendships, you have to be selective.
Yeah, friendships, relationships, you just have to make sure you have that positive support, someone that's going to help you achieve, like, if you're like, oh, this is what I need to do and I don't want to do XYZ anymore, make sure that the people that are closest to you are on the same page and not going to discourage you from that. Because remember, if you're trying to break bad habits or negative thought patterns, that's changing your life in a positive way. So if someone's going to sit there and try to change, they're obviously trying to change it in a negative way. Don't think that's someone that you need to or should have around anymore. So that's gonna, you want to, and it brings us back to the last one too, the circle and the company that you keep. Be very mindful of that. I always think of that when they say, birds of a feather flock together. You always look and you're like, hold on. Okay, I'm good. Like, I don't want to be associated, like it's crazy. And then you also have to think too, like people are going to look at you that way. Like I want, I want my friends to be proud of being friends with me. That, and then the other one that always sticks out, which is one of like the corny old ones, was Sally says of Susie says more about Sally than Susie. I can't stand that when someone comes to try to like talk about someone to you because they don't want, I could see if like you're talking to your best friend or you're talking about stuff, but when you're talking so badly about someone to get someone else to dislike the person, like just like, or constantly hating on someone, it's like, okay, I can't. First of all, I can't listen to it. I don't have time for it. I can't stand it. So I don't know. That one's always stuck with me. That's
I think that comes with age though too. The whole like talking about other people when you know that person has not a foot to stand on to talk about that person in the way that they're talking about them.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, growing up, I never heard like my mom or like her friends or like my family. Yeah. I never heard them talking about like her friend, like those.
No, me either. They didn't back talk or about anybody because they appreciated the people in their circle. Yeah. So with my mom, like what she said, the birds of the feather flock together. I used to get so mad when she used to say that because I used to hate it because I'd be like, I'm my own person. I'd be like, what does it matter if I hang out with this person that's acting a whole different way than I'm acting? I'm not them. Mm-hmm. But I would never understand and I would never get it because I didn't want to because I wanted to hang out with that person. Yeah. Until you get older and you're like, oh, now I get it. Especially when you become a parent. Mm-hmm. And then you see your kids hanging out with people that aren't, not good people. And then you try to use those same metaphors to tell your children. And you're like, damn.
I sound like my mother.
I didn't listen to none of that.
Mm-hmm. That's why they say, mind the company you keep, mm-hmm. right? As you get older, you'll see, too, you won't want it. There's certain people you won't want to be surrounded by because you
grow out of those people.
Yeah. Or, just that negativity. You don't want to be surrounded by it. Also, too, my oldest, I was just telling recently, we were talking about, just people around that are just like negative or complain all the time. And I know that comes with age. God, I really hope that doesn't happen to me. Oh my gosh. Every time I'm like, if I complain about anything, I'm like, I say to my daughter, I'm like, am I complaining too much? Like, is that too much? Because I feel like the older you get, and no disrespect towards older people, I'm just speaking for like my grandmother, like people that are close to me.
Your own experiences, yeah.
They complain about, it's like constant.
And it's so funny that you say that.
My oldest is very calm. Like he's not like a mm-hmm. fighter. And he said that. He's like, I just don't like to be around like complaining or negativity or just like this constant, like for him, that's very stressful because he's not used to that. He's a very like calm, I'm always like high strung, like a little crazy. So I'm trying to like adapt that more calmness now that I'm getting older too, you mm-hmm. just can't do that to yourself or your body anymore. And it rubs off on you though. So if you're with someone who is like that, who's always negative, complaining, that's going to rub off on you. And you know what sucks is if you're the more calm person or you're the person that like handles difficult situations very well, your goodness is going to rub off on them while their badness is going to rub off on you. So you do have to be careful because it's all energy. My badness used to rub off on, actually no, my badness never rubbed off on you, girl. You were like, her goodness rubbed off on me. So thank God it went that way, but you never know which way it's going to go.
Exactly. So with my daughter, that's so funny that you said that because I was just saying that to her the other day. I was like, if I start acting like that, please tell me. She was like, oh no. She was like, I have no problem. And my daughter's a lot like her, very stern, like to the point, like, she does not deal with crap. And so she will tell you, like, even if it hurt your feelings, she's the type of person, she can't, it's like, she has to let you know. Filter, yeah. She has to let you know. So she's like, and that's not my personality. So you'll definitely know there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
If I'm like constantly complaining and I'm going crazy, that, just slap me. Why
do they complain so much? They're so like moody and grumpy, and that scares me because I'm like, dude, you're entering like the fourth chapter of your life. Why complain? Yeah, that's how I'm trying to like think because I'm like, in all reality, we're in, we've lived pretty much half our lives already. So it's like, I want to spend the last half of my life really appreciating and just being at peace as much as possible. I don't know. That's
100%. That's your goal. I feel like that's your end goal. Mm-hmm. Like when you're in your beginning and you're raising your kids and you're working, you're going to school, you're doing all of this, is to prepare you for the end goal of having peace, living your life, doing what you want to do, and just your kids are raised. It's your turn.
Yeah. And just remember too, the more complaining you do, you're going to find more things to complain about. So try to stop that and show appreciation, show gratitude. But I think the first step in breaking these bad habits and thought patterns is, first of all, writing them down and making like a clear cut, like, okay, what are because sometimes, like we were saying in the beginning of the episode, you don't know where your bad habits are. I mean, I'm sure we have plenty more, mm-hmm. but so really like analyzing them, looking at them, and then after pointing them out, no matter how big or how tiny they are, start small and look at them and say, okay, how can I break this habit? What is the first step in getting rid of this and stop doing this and not doing it anymore? We'll wrap this up, but in one of my things is whenever there is confrontation, which is so weird because when something bothers me, I'm very like stern and adamant about it. But when there is like confrontation or anything that needs to be discussed that could potentially turn into an argument, I disengage, I completely cut off, and I just shut myself out. Like I'm done. I will just check out. Like goodbye, I'm done. And that is terrible. That's not good. I need to learn to be able to sit there with those uncomfortable feelings. I need to be able to communicate through them, express them, and also listen to the person speaking back to me and appreciate and understand where they're coming from as well, whether it's wrong, right, whoever, and that's always been a huge issue for me. I think because as a kid just growing up, I never had someone to really just listen to me or listen to things that were important that had to be said or spoken about. So that's just a habit that I've picked up and, just was embedded in me growing up. And I have to break that because if not, it's going to ruin my relationships, whether it's friendships, relationships with my children, relationships with a partner. You have to break that. I have to break that in order to live a good, healthy life with healthy relationships around me. But yeah, so I think just knowing what they are, taking those steps, and then starting small, and having that patience with yourself because it's not easy.
Yeah, just being able to know that you can get rid of those bad habits. Like you have to be willing to get rid of it. It's human nature. It's not going to benefit you. So you have to learn it's hard to just let things go. But like she said, if you write it down, sometimes you even need to go as far as getting counseling to help you get rid of those really deep down bad habits. And sometimes you need to go there to understand some of the bad habits, where they stem from. In order to correct them. So definitely never, ever, ever be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, I know. I'm so happy that nowadays, remember when we were younger, if you went to therapy or anything, especially I know in my family, if you were younger, like, what's wrong with you? There's something wrong. Like, do you want to not live? Like, it was just so dramatic. Like, you didn't go to therapy because if you went, so I'm so happy that we're in such a different time to where therapy is almost encouraged now. Like, please go get help. But I also find that with that comes a lot of therapists that are no longer doing like therapy under insurance. So now it's becoming really like a lot of therapists are going private, not through insurance. So you have to pay and it's expensive. So that's something we have to be like mindful of. But if you're able to, I encourage it so much. So I think it's
definitely
great.
Nowadays, definitely 100% of benefit. It's not something that it's not frowned upon. So don't feel like it is. Like, be happy that you took the initiative and are strong enough to go get therapy and go get help, because you'll be that person that'll help that next person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. I'm sure there's so much we could talk about on this topic because it is. But even anything small, like really sitting down and with yourself alone and thinking of what it is, there's so much that you can do for yourself and change your life in such a positive direction. Just live that life that you're meant to live, a happy life and a joyous life. And nothing's ever perfect, but
don't try to make it perfect.
Yeah, there's no such thing. Exactly. Yeah, there's no such thing as that. I will link anything below if there's any like resources or meditation. That is what I wanted to include in there. There's a 3-minute meditation video because for me personally, my mind is just too much. I'm starting slow, like really like with just a couple minutes. And there's some great ones out there. I will definitely link those so you can check those out because it does help. And as always, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave some feedback. That's like one of our best ways of engaging with you guys. Yes. So really being interactive. If you could please do that. And don't forget to subscribe to our Patreon channel. That is a private channel with private episodes, a little bit more, just
personal. Yeah. And if you have any other, personal stuff you want to discuss with us, that's the place that you want to do it on, is on our Patreon.
Yeah. So until next time, mi gente, we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Love, light, peace, V.
and C.